Introduction. The red numbers on the dashboard clock just flipped to 6:45 p.m. In exactly 15 minutes, the doors to the hotel ballroom will open. Inside, 300 people are already laughing, swapping business cards, and making the kind of connections that change careers. Elena has been sitting in her parked car for exactly 45 minutes. She arrived early to make sure she found a good spot, but now the spot feels like a cage. Her hand is on the door handle. It has been there for 10 minutes. Every time she prepares to pull it, a new voice pops up in her head. What if I walk in and realize I'm underdressed? What if I try to join a conversation and there's an awkward silence? What if my boss is there and wonders why I'm not at home finishing that project? She opens her phone and looks at the event page for the 5th time. She reads the speaker list again. She checks the weather. She looks at herself in the rear-view mirror and fixes a strand of hair that was already perfect. Her heart is beating fast, not because she is running, but because her mind is sprinting in circles. She is exhausted, and she hasn't even stepped out of the car. This is the mental carousel. It is a ride that goes nowhere, costs a lot of energy, and makes you feel sick. Most of us spend hours every day on this ride. We think we are solving problems or being careful. In reality, we are just stuck. The invisible tax on your life. The world tells us that more information is always better. We are told to look before we leap and do our homework. We have the entire history of human knowledge in our pockets. If we have a question about a career move, a health issue, or even what kind of toaster to buy, we can find 10,000 opinions in seconds. We think this information will make us feel safe. We believe that if we just read one more article, watch one more video, or ask one more friend, the right choice will become perfectly clear. We are waiting for the fog of certainty to lift. We want to feel 100% sure before we act. But the fog doesn't lift. It gets thicker. Each new piece of information brings a new what if. Each new opinion adds a new worry. Instead of feeling more confident, we feel more heavy. This is the analysis abyss. It is the place where good ideas go to die, and where big dreams get buried under a pile of pros and cons lists. This overthinking is an invisible tax. It steals your time. It steals your sleep. Most importantly, it steals your agency, your power to actually change your life. While you are busy imagining 18 different ways things could go wrong, the world is moving on without you. The job goes to someone else. The relationship never starts. The book never gets written. You aren't lazy. You aren't bad at making decisions. You are caught in a loop that your brain created to keep you safe. Your brain thinks that as long as you are thinking, you are safe from making a mistake. It thinks that if you never choose, you can never be wrong. But the biggest mistake of all is staying in the car while life happens in the ballroom. The promise of the bias to motion. You did not pick up this book because you want more tips on how to think. You picked it up because you want to stop thinking and start doing. You want to feel the relief that comes from making a choice and moving forward, even if that choice isn't perfect. By the time you reach the final page, you will be a different person. You will no longer be a paralyzed observer of your own life. You will become a person with a bias to motion. A person with a bias to motion understands a secret that overthinkers hate to hear. Clarity is found in action, not in thought. You cannot think your way out of a mental loop. You have to act your way out. Imagine waking up and knowing exactly what your top goal is for the day. Imagine sending that scary email in 30 seconds instead of 3 hours. Imagine standing in the grocery store aisle and picking a bottle of olive oil without reading 47 labels. These small wins build a decisive muscle. You will learn how to treat your choices as data points rather than moral judgments. If you make a choice and it doesn't work out, you didn't fail. You just got a new piece of data. This shift in mindset changes everything. It turns the world from a scary place full of traps into a giant laboratory where you are the lead scientist. You will regain hours of your day. You will sleep better because your brain won't be debugging your life at 3 a.m. You will feel a sense of lightness that you haven't felt since you were a child. Children don't overthink, they just play. We are going to find that part of you again. Why you can trust this path. The tools in this book aren't just good advice or positive thinking. They are based on how the human brain actually works. We will look at how our ancestors survived because they were afraid of everything, and why that same fear system is now ruining our modern lives. We will look at the lives of people who had to make world-changing decisions under incredible pressure. We will see how Roman emperors used specific mental tools to stay calm while their world was falling apart. We will see how pioneers in science and technology learned to value done over perfect. This isn't about becoming a person who never thinks. It's about becoming a person who knows when to stop thinking. There is a time for analysis and a time for action. Most overthinkers have a broken off switch for their brain. We are going to fix that switch. The methods here have been tested in the real world. They have worked for people in high-pressure jobs, for parents trying to balance a million tasks, and for artists who were too afraid to show their work to the world. They will work for you because they aren't about changing who you are, they are about removing the mental junk that is getting in your way. The story of Elena. To see how this works, we need to follow Elena. She is 34 years old and incredibly smart. She works as a senior software architect at a tech startup that is growing way too fast. People look at her and see a success. She has a great job, a nice apartment, and a sharp mind. But inside, Elena feels like she is drowning. She is the queen of the mental carousel. Every night, she stays at her desk until 9 p.m. She isn't always writing new code. Often, she is just staring at one paragraph of an email to her CEO. She writes it, deletes it, rewrites it, and then worries about the tone for another hour. She is terrified that one wrong word will make her look like she doesn't know what she's doing. She fears that her coworkers will realize she is a fraud who just got lucky. At 3 a.m., Elena is often awake. She isn't thinking about her big dreams. She is thinking about a comment her boss made during lunch. Did he mean my work is slow? Or was he just tired? Why did he look at his watch when I was talking? This is the fog of certainty in action. Elena thinks that if she analyzes the lunch conversation enough, she will find the truth and feel safe again. But the truth isn't in her thoughts. It's in the fog. Elena's struggle is the central story of this book. We will follow her as she tries to apply the bias to motion to her life. We will see her fail, we will see her get stuck, and eventually we will see her break free. You might find that her story sounds a lot like yours. The journey ahead. We are about to start a journey that will take us from the deepest parts of your brain to the highest levels of human achievement. We will begin by looking at why your mind chooses to stay stuck. We will meet a donkey from an old story that starved to death because it couldn't decide which pile of hay to eat. This will help us understand why we get deadlocked by simple choices. We will look at how too much information can actually be a prison. You will see how a terrible airplane disaster was caused by people thinking too much instead of looking at what was right in front of them. This will teach you the 70% rule, a way to act before you have all the facts. We will spend time with Admiral Grace Hopper, a woman who changed the world of computers by being unreasonably decisive. She will show us why good enough is often better than perfect, and how to ask for forgiveness instead of permission. We will talk about the anxiety loop, and how to use your body to shut down your mind when it starts to spin out of control. We will learn from a doctor who discovered something that could save thousands of lives, but lost his mind because he couldn't stop obsessing over what people thought of him. We will look at the 5 pillars of radical decisiveness. These are the same rules used by the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. He will show us how to stay steady when everything around us is moving. We will even look at pirate logic. You will learn how small crews of pirates were able to outsmart the giant, slow-moving British Navy simply because they could make decisions faster. Finally, you will learn the 7-second rule. This is a way to jam the gears of your overthinking before it even starts. It is the tool that will help Elena, and you, finally get out of the car and walk into the ballroom. The red numbers on the dashboard don't have to be a countdown to failure. They can be a signal that it is time to move. You have spent enough time in the parking lot of your life. The door handle is in your hand. It is time to open it. Chapter 1: Why does the mind choose paralysis? The air in the grocery store is cold and smells faintly of bleach and floor wax. Overhead, the long fluorescent lights hum with a low, steady buzz that seems to vibrate inside your skull. Elena stands in aisle 4, her feet heavy in her work shoes. She is staring at 2 jars of tomato sauce. One is a bright red jar with a gold label that says, "Handpicked." The other is a simple green jar that costs $2 less. She picks up the red jar. She reads the back. Then she picks up the green jar and reads that one too. She checks the sugar. She checks the salt. She wonders if the hand-picked tomatoes really taste better, or if it is just a trick to get her money. Her mind starts to move faster. If she spends the extra $2, she might be wasting money she needs for her electric bill. But if she buys the cheap sauce and it tastes like metal, she will have wasted the whole evening making a dinner no one wants to eat. 10 minutes pass. Elena is still standing there. Other shoppers push their carts past her, their wheels clicking on the white tiles. She feels like a statue. The mental carousel has started. It's a spinning ride of what-ifs. What if I'm being foolish? What if there is a third option? What if I should just go to a different store? The more she thinks, the harder it feels to move her arms. Her brain is working so hard to find the perfect answer that it has actually stopped her body from doing anything at all. This is the fog of certainty. Elena believes that if she just reads the labels one more time, she will find a fact that makes the choice 100% safe. She is waiting for a feeling of total sureness that is never going to come. The ghost in the machine. To understand why Elena's brain is lying to her, we have to look back at where our brains came from. Thousands of years ago, humans lived in a world where a single mistake could mean the end of your life. If you were walking through tall grass and saw a flash of orange, you didn't sit down to think about it. You didn't wonder if it was a tiger or just a beautiful sunset hitting a rock. If you spent 10 minutes analyzing the orange shape, you were eaten. The humans who survived were the ones with a very sensitive threat alarm. This alarm is a tiny almond-shaped part of the brain called the amygdala. Its job is to scream danger at the first sign of trouble. When that alarm goes off, it shuts down the parts of your brain used for slow, deep thinking. It wants you to run, fight, or hide. Today, we don't have many tigers. But we have a lot of choices. We have thousands of brands of sauce, hundreds of career paths, and endless emails. Our brains haven't changed much in all those years. When Elena stands in the grocery store, her threat alarm is going off. Her brain thinks that picking the wrong tomato sauce is just as dangerous as a tiger in the grass. She is experiencing the mental carousel. This is when your thoughts go round and round in a circle. You aren't getting anywhere new. You are just seeing the same what-if scenarios over and over. You think you are solving a problem, but you are actually just spinning. The problem is that our brains are built to find safety. We hate being wrong. We hate losing things. In the past, being wrong meant death. Now, being wrong just means a bad dinner or a slightly awkward email. But your brain doesn't know the difference. It treats every choice like a life or death battle. It keeps you paralyzed because, in the brain's logic, if you don't choose, you can't be wrong. The starving donkey. There is an old story from hundreds of years ago about a donkey. People call it Buridan's ass. The story was named after a philosopher named Jean Buridan, though he might not have been the one who first told it. In the story, there is a very hungry donkey. He has been walking all day and is desperate for food. Suddenly, he finds himself standing exactly halfway between 2 large piles of hay. Both piles are the same size. Both piles look equally green and delicious. Both piles smell exactly the same. The donkey looks to the left. The hay looks great. He looks to the right. That hay looks great too. Because he is a very logical donkey, he tries to find a reason to pick one over the other. He looks for a sign. He looks for a slightly bigger leaf or a better smell. But there is no difference. He stays perfectly in the middle. He thinks and thinks. He analyzes the hay. He wonders if the left pile has more vitamins or if the right pile is fresher. Because he cannot find a perfect reason to choose one pile, he never takes a step. He stands there in the middle of two giant meals, until he eventually falls over and dies of hunger. This is exactly what happens to us when we overthink. We think that by waiting, we are being careful. We think we are being smart. But waiting for more information is often just a fancy way of saying we are paralyzed. The donkey didn't die because he made a bad choice. He died because he refused to make any choice. Elena is the donkey. She is so afraid of making the wrong choice between two jars of sauce that she is losing her most valuable resource, her time. She is spending her life standing in an aisle while the world moves on around her. She is trapped in the fog of certainty, believing that if she just waits a little longer, the right answer will appear like a bolt of lightning. The Emperor's Secret. Long before Elena stood in her grocery store, and long before the story of the donkey was told, there was a man named Marcus Aurelius. He was the emperor of Rome. On paper, he had everything. He was the most powerful man in the world. He could have anything he wanted. But his life was not easy. He spent years living in a cold tent on the edges of the empire, fighting wars he didn't want to fight. A terrible plague was killing his people. His friends were betraying him. His own body was often in pain. Marcus Aurelius had every reason to be the world's biggest overthinker. He had thousands of lives resting on his decisions. He could have spent every night staring at the ceiling, spinning his own mental carousel of worries. What if the Germans attack tomorrow? What if the plague gets worse? What if I am a bad leader? Instead, he wrote a private diary to himself. Today, we call this book Meditations. He didn't write it for us to read, he wrote it to keep his own mind from spinning out of control. Marcus had a rule for himself. He believed that the world is divided into two piles. In the first pile are things we cannot control. This includes the weather, what other people think of us, and the final result of our actions. In the second pile is the only thing we can control, our own judgment and our own actions right now. He often told himself to stop being jerked around like a puppet. He realized that overthinking is like letting an invisible string pull your brain in every direction. When you overthink, you are trying to control things in the first pile, the things you can't change. You are trying to guarantee that the future will be perfect. Marcus knew that the future is never perfect. He believed that the ruling faculty, the part of your mind that makes decisions, is like a fire. A strong fire can take anything you throw into it and turn it into heat and light. It doesn't matter if you throw in good wood or trash, the fire just uses it. To Marcus, a decision wasn't a test you could pass or fail. It was just wood for the fire. If he made a choice and it turned out badly, he didn't sit and cry. He used that new information to make the next choice. He moved from thought to action as quickly as possible. He knew that the only way to clear the fog was to keep walking through it. The tax of the mind. Overthinking is not just a habit. It is a tax you pay on your life. Imagine if every time you wanted to walk through a door, you had to pay $5. You would probably think twice before moving from room to room. You would get stuck in one place because it was too expensive to move. Overthinking is that $5 tax, but you pay it with your energy and your time. When Elena finally picks the red jar of sauce and leaves the store, she is exhausted. She hasn't run a marathon. She hasn't done heavy lifting. But her brain is wiped out. This is called decision fatigue. Our brains have a limited amount of choice juice every day. Every time we spin the mental carousel, we leak that juice. By the time Elena gets home, she is too tired to talk to her partner. She is too tired to work on the side project she loves. She sits on the couch and stares at the TV. The overthinking in the grocery store stole her evening. It stole her joy. We often think that overthinking makes us safer. We think it helps us avoid mistakes. But the biggest mistake of all is the life we miss while we are busy worrying. We are looking for perfect certainty, but that is a ghost. It doesn't exist. There is no perfect jar of sauce. There is no perfect job. There is no perfect way to start a conversation. There are only choices and outcomes. If you choose the wrong sauce, you learn that you don't like it. That is a win. You now have more data than you had before. You have cleared a little bit of the fog. The bias to motion. The cure for the mental carousel is not more thinking. You cannot think your way out of overthinking. That is like trying to put out a fire by throwing more wood on it. The only way to stop the spin is to move your body. This is called the bias to motion. Think about a bicycle. If you try to stand still on a bike, you will wobble and fall over. It is very hard to balance a bike that isn't moving. But as soon as you start pedaling, the bike becomes stable. It becomes easy to steer. Your life is the same way. When you are standing still, like Elena in the aisle or the donkey between the hay, you feel shaky. You feel like you are going to fall. The world feels dangerous. But the moment you take a step, even if it's a small one, you gain balance. Action creates clarity. Thought creates fog. When Elena is paralyzed, she is trying to see the whole map before she takes a step. But the map is only drawn after you walk the path. You cannot know if the hand-picked sauce is better until it is in your mouth. You cannot know if the new job is right until you are sitting at the desk. The fog of certainty is a wall that disappears as you walk into it. It looks solid from a distance, but it's just mist. The only way to prove it's just mist is to put your hand through it. Breaking the carousel. Elena's struggle isn't about sauce. It's about her fear of being a fraud. At her job as a software architect, she stays up until 3 a.m. checking her code. She thinks that if there is one tiny bug, her boss will realize she doesn't belong there. She thinks overthinking is her superpower that keeps her safe. But it's actually her cage. She has been living in the analysis abyss. This is the deep hole we fall into when we believe that more information will always lead to a better choice. In the 21st century, we have more information than any humans in history. We have reviews, videos, articles, and data for everything. If more information led to more certainty, we would be the most certain people to ever live. But we aren't. We are the most anxious. Because for every pro we find online, we find a con. For every person who loves a product, someone else hates it. The information doesn't clear the fog, it makes the fog thicker. Marcus Aurelius didn't have Google. He had his own mind and his own values. He knew that even if he had all the information in the world, he still couldn't predict the future. He chose to be decisive rather than right. Being decisive means you trust yourself to handle whatever happens after the choice. If the sauce is bad, Elena can handle it. She can add some salt. She can order a pizza. She is not a victim of her choices, she is the creator of her life. The donkey died because he thought the choice was the most important thing. He forgot that staying alive was the real goal. Elena stays in the store because she thinks the sauce is the most important thing. She forgets that getting home to her family is the real goal. The first step out. You might feel like your overthinking is part of who you are. You might say, I've always been this way. I'm just a worrier. But overthinking is just a loop in your brain that has been traveled so many times it has become a deep rut. Like a wagon wheel stuck in the mud, your thoughts naturally fall into that rut. To get out, you have to steer the wheel in a new direction. It will feel hard at first. The mud will pull at you. But every time you make a fast decision, you are filling in that rut. You are building a decisive muscle. Right now, your overthinking muscle is huge. It's like a bodybuilder who only works out his left arm. Your action muscle is small and weak. To balance things out, you don't need to go to thinking school. You need to go to action gym. You start with small things. You start with the sauce. You start with the email. You start by realizing that good enough is often better than perfect, because good enough actually gets finished. Elena is starting to realize this. She looks at the 2 jars. She feels the mental carousel starting to spin. She feels the hum of the lights. But this time, she does something different. She doesn't read the labels again. She doesn't check her phone. She closes her eyes. She counts to 3. On 3, she grabs the green jar because she likes the color. She drops it into her cart and walks away. Her heart is beating a little fast. Her brain is screaming, wait. We didn't check the ingredients one more time. But she keeps walking. She reaches the end of the aisle. She turns the corner. And something amazing happens. The world doesn't end. The ceiling doesn't fall. She is still Elena. But she is an Elena who is 10 feet closer to the checkout line. She has reclaimed 10 seconds of her life. It is a small win, but it is the start of a revolution. Your daily decisive act. The only way to break the fog of certainty is to practice being uncertain. You have to get used to the feeling of making a move without knowing exactly how it will turn out. Today, you are going to practice micro-deciding. Choose one thing today that usually makes you spin your wheels. It should be something small and low risk. Maybe it's what to eat for lunch. Maybe it's which shirt to wear. Maybe it's which song to play in the car. When you reach that moment of choice, follow these steps. Spot the spin. Notice when your mind starts to say, what if, or let me just check one more thing. That is the mental carousel. Set a timer. Give yourself exactly 10 seconds. Count it down in your head. The leap. Pick an option before you hit 0. It doesn't have to be the best option. It just has to be an option. Walk away. Once the choice is made, do not look back. Do not check the other label. Do not ask for a second opinion. You are showing your brain that you are safe even when you aren't certain. You are teaching your threat alarm that a choice is not a tiger. The donkey died because he wanted to be 100% sure. Marcus Aurelius thrived because he knew 100% certainty was a lie. Elena is learning to walk through the fog. Now it is your turn. Pick your sauce and keep moving. Chapter 2: The Analysis Abyss: How Information Becomes a Prison. For a long time, every pilot and flight engineer in the world believed the same thing. They believed that more information was the only way to stay safe. If you had more dials on the dashboard, more voices in your headset, and more data from the control tower, you couldn't fail. Safety was a math problem. If you added up enough facts, the answer would always be a perfect landing. On March 27, 1977, that belief hit a wall. It happened on a tiny island called Tenerife. 2 massive Boeing 747 jets sat on a narrow runway. One belonged to KLM, and the other to Pan Am. Both planes were packed with people. Both pilots were highly skilled. In fact, the pilot of the KLM plane, Jacob Veldhuizen van Zanten, was a celebrity in the aviation world. He was the man who taught other pilots how to fly. He was known for his perfect focus and his deep knowledge of every rule in the book. The weather was terrible. A thick fog had rolled in, turning the world into a wall of white. You couldn't see the end of the runway, let alone another plane. The pilots were stressed. They were worried about missing their schedules. They were worried about fuel. They were trying to listen to the radio, talk to their co-pilots, and watch their instruments all at the same time. Captain Van Zanten was trapped in what we now call the fog of certainty. He wanted to be 100% sure he was cleared to take off. He was processing a mountain of data, weather reports, fuel weight, and engine heat. He was so busy trying to manage all these facts that his brain stopped seeing the big picture.